pop on here and make this little video. So I just had this guy. He was talking to his friend. He's going through a breakup, and he was talking to his friend about something that happened. He went through his breakup. God, I pray that you help me condense this to the shortest possible, with the most effect. So he talks about, like, oh, if I didn't believe in God at this point, now I did. And then he started telling the story, and the story was he knew his girlfriend was cheating on, like, she was like out the door, and I can relate to that because I've had that happen. She was like out the door, and she was going on a date basically with somebody else while they were like still kind of talking. Long-term relationship. It was painful. And he told her, he was like, all right, well, I don't care what you do tonight, but in the morning we'll go kayaking. If you don't call me at 9 in the morning, then just don't bother calling me. Like, we're done. Because he'd probably been flaked on by her 1,000 times or what have you. Anyways. So the next day comes around and she doesn't call. And he said, but his friends called. And they said, hey, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I don't know, I'm just whatever. And he goes, well, get your stuff together, we're going kayaking. And they didn't know that he had made those plans with his ex-girlfriend. So, and like the fact that he equated that with God, it's like God showed up for him, and it's like his heart was broken. So God, like, he'll show up for the brokenhearted, like he'll manifest like that for his people. So I just thought that was so great. And it was so funny. Like, I got confirmations on the way too. Like, I didn't pray with them. Sometimes it's hard to like kind of walk out, especially with strangers. But God told me, he was telling me to like pray for this guy. He was going through a breakup, and like, I just wanted to break that stuff off of him. Going through a breakup, I'm going to break that stuff off. So I was praying in my head for him while we're driving. But anyways, so whether his friend knew it or not, like, he was ministering to him, basically. Like, whenever you're telling stories about God, how God's showing up for you, you're ministering. And then also, like, when you talk about God, there, and it's true, and it's like a real God encounter that you had, and somebody's receptive to it, it's like you can feel the atmosphere change. You can feel, it's like almost like a time dilation. It's like time slows down, or it almost like doesn't even exist. It's like time's not there anymore. And it's like, I think it's because the presence of God is there. Like, when you're talking about God, like, he wants to hear it. You know how sometimes you're like, oh, what two people say about me it's none of my business. I don't think God's like, because I think that whole time dilation feeling is that God's there and he's listening. He's like, oh, let me see what they're saying about me. So anyway, God, I love you. I love you, Lord. So, anyways, so he was talking like that. And then another thing too, like, I think we've all had those friends that have gone through a breakup and they just talk about their ex. Oh my gosh. And it's like a never ending thing, and you're trying to like snap them out of it. And it's like so hard to like snap somebody out of it. Anyways, but I could tell his friend was like a good friend. Like, he like genuinely cared. I don't know. I was just kind of impressed by the whole situation. Anyways, so what it made me think of while we were driving away, number one, I just love seeing God manifest, and I like it. I enjoy, God's a jealous God, so I try to be a jealous little guy of God. Like, God, how you like? I hope you showed up for me before you showed up for him that day. He probably did. He probably did something nice for me that day. But anyways, just hearing and having him present himself, like hearing how he manifested to the brokenhearted. Oh, it was just so great, because it's like another way to see God, to see like how the light hits his face in this manner. You know what I mean? It's just so awesome. I love it. So anyways, so there's that, which is just great. It's like the best thing in the world. It just had me thinking about a bunch of stuff. Sometimes when you talk to people in your head or pray for, like, sometimes when you do the things in your head that God's telling you to do in real life, it's like you get a lot out of it still. Anyways, so I'm kind of praying for the guys while we're driving, and I'm breaking the power of those the 7 stages of grief. You know how they try to tell us that anything the world tells me, I really don't believe much. I don't have basically any faith in it, because I've been in once you start realizing how spiritual everything is, it's like you understand this world is like, there's really nothing in this world that I have trust in, apart from the fact that a lot of the world hates Jesus and they are enemies of Christ. It's just the way it is. So I have to, and there's a lot of principalities and powers of darkness that preside over, most of the world. It's just the way it is. It's like, that's what we're dealing with. So anyway, so 7 stages of grief, I was coming against them. So, I'm breaking all the power of those 7 stages of grief. There's only, in the way they tell us we need it. And, we only need one thing, and that's you, Jesus. And Father God, any of those ways that those stages of grief will interfere with our relationship with you. Like when you think about when you're going through like grieving or something like that, if that's even what it is, it's probably just demons like using an opportunity to get you to focus on something else. If you're not focusing on the TV, they're going to drain your energy by focusing on whatever breakup or emotional attachment you had to whatever it is. Long story short, I was coming against it. And so there was that. I was coming against that stuff. And the guy was a doctor. So I was coming against the oath that he made to the snake on a pole. Had to break that. And I don't know. It's not about me. It's about it was just nice to hear. Like whenever somebody like talks about God, it's like my ears like perk up. Especially when there's like that time dilation effect. You can sense the presence of God because he's genuinely being talked about, and God's like eavesdropping in on the conversation. And so it was just great to hear that. I was just like sitting in the front seat, like cheering on. You know what I mean? Like I was cheering the whole thing on. Like, man, this is good. And sometimes people, you mention God and they just like shut off, or they want to like get away from the conversation. It's uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Because God's not for everybody. That's the thing. I think we got this misconception that, we're all God's children. I don't think that's true. There are children of the devil. I say this all the time. I counter them all the time. Anyways, I'm not going to go down that road. All I'm going to say is it was just so nice to hear somebody else who had an encounter with God like that. Because if you think about it, so those miracles that happen, those strong coincidences where God shows up, like he manifested it and he healed the brokenhearted. He showed up for him. But he didn't show up in that moment. See, that person might have felt that he showed up in that moment, but really, God showed up 6 months before that. He showed up 6 months before that, arranging his friends' lives and everything and setting it all up, knowing that he's going to be going through this situation. And God's like, he's not going to do it for nothing. He's going to do it to like manifest his glory. So he put that on his heart too, where it's like, if I didn't believe in God, like at that moment I believed in God. Because like that's just how he is. So he works all things out for the good of those who love him. So it's just nice to hear that, to hear how God showed up. Even though I know he showed up after he did something nice for me, he showed up for him. I already know that. Ain't that right, God? But it was just nice. It's nice to hear it. I get like chills all over just thinking about it. So it's good, if whenever you're going through crap, it's like that's where God's gonna come and hang out with you. When all your friends are gone, when everything's gone and put away and you're just broken, that's when God wants to hang out with you. That's when he wants to come hang out. That's cool. It's just a part of his nature. So it's not necessarily good or bad. Well, it is very good. It's like the epitome and the highest good of goods. And every character attribute that God possesses, from what I can see, and like the ways I've encountered him and how he's manifested and showed me pieces of a character, it's like the highest level of good. They're so great. It's the top of the top of the top of the top. And there's so much like good character packed into these attributes of God's personality, or just the person he is, and the way he'll manifest to you in a certain like defined manner. And then in that defined manner, even though he's undefinable, in that defined manner and that defined like a blocked off space, it's just so good. And it's the highest good of that blocked off area. And this way it was like he manifested to the brokenhearted. But like I said, he did it back in time. That's the best part about when God shows up and like he shows off for his glory. It's like he does it back in time. It's like he'll show up for you and you'll have this miracle and it's just this amazing thing, and he'll open your heart for that moment to where you can't think about anything else except for God. You get chills, you get like hit in the stomach with the presence of the Lord. But it's like, it's not just that moment. It's something that he was planning a long time ago. And then when you start unpacking these miracles and the way God shows up, it becomes incredibly flattering because you see how much he loves you. He loves you so freaking much. So much. And another part about that thing is too, like when you start talking to other people about these experiences that you have, and you can just tell that it's not for them. It's not for them. So now think about that. Think about the God of the universe is taking time to arrange everything in this world for you. To arrange it all for you. Not for you and them. For you. And he'll prove it to you. He'll prove it by when you talk to other people about it, they like trance out and they can't handle it, and you just know it's not for them. Right? How awesome is, man, it's so good. It's the best in the whole world. Anyways, I'm gonna hop off here. It's the best.